In this video, I'm going to share with you a story from a wonderful bookkeeper, a wonderful lady in Canada called Carol, and we had a chat together. I wanted to find out about how she's completely transformed the way that she prices from the old-fashioned way of time-based billing and how she now has a system for pricing. She also talks about her pre-qualification process, which is a great story. Let's go and listen to Carol now. So Carol, it's awesome to have you on this session and get a chance to catch up with you because it's a while since we last spoke. And I know you're doing some extraordinary things with your pricing, which I'm looking forward to hearing more about, what you've been up to, the results you've been getting. But before that, just by way of some background, Carol, could you just talk a little bit about your firm? What do you do? How long you've been going? Where's it based? Just that sort of background information would give us some context to what comes next.
Sure. So I'm based in Maple BC, Canada, and I've been in business for over 24 years.
A long time.
Yes. And basically it started from, I worked in a position where I was doing administration and bookkeeping. And then, family was starting and I was working, literally going to work at 5:30 in the morning and getting home at 5:30 at night. And
Wow.
I thought, how am I going to take care of a baby and work? So literally, I had two girlfriends that were already in the bookkeeping business right out of school and had their own businesses, and kind of chatted with them. Hey, how, blah, blah, blah. And she said, oh, it's super easy. You can do this, blah, 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 blah. So as I was off on maternity leave, I started my business.
Okay, like you do.
Literally. Yeah, I was up and running in November and I went back to work in, I guess, March. And then, yeah, not too long after that, I left the corporate world and was working full time at home.
Congratulations. And so when you started, how did things go with pricing? What were some of the challenges you faced? What were some of the issues, the problems you had when you were building the firm and pricing?
Well, that's where, looking back, I would have done things a lot differently. I basically took from what I was being paid, in the corporate world, and kind of manifested that from an hourly rate to start my business. And yeah, I was not getting a lot of money. But I realized that very quickly I needed to increase that price, but still staying at that hourly rate, because that was just the only way I knew how people did it was in the accounting world. Everybody was hourly. You worked for a period of time and then you did an invoice and you sent it off and waited to get paid.
Absolutely. It's the way I was brought up in the profession. I thought you had to do that when I started in '96. I didn't know anything better. And that's what most people do. So when did you realize, Carol, that something had to change?
Well, I mean, as time went on, my rates increased, but I was working with a client who kind of helped, but kind of not helped, because as we went through our hourly annual review, it was more like I was asking for an increase as opposed to stating what my fees were. And it honestly, and I'm not saying it for any other reason than that that brain mentality didn't change until I met you. It was listening literally at the Intuit Thrive of your talk on the stage, and I'm going, okay. We need to have a talk with that guy.
And if I remember right, that was Thrive. That was in December 2015, I think.
15. Yeah.
Yeah.
6 years ago.
Okay, so that was the
Well,
first time
here's
that
one
was the
now,
first
but
time
yeah,
we met, was it? Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And that was literally, you had the little booth there and we went and chatted with you, but it was listening to you talk about that and I'm going, I can do that. Like I don't have to do hourly. It's like, light bulb. Yeah. So it was definitely, and that was, I signed up for your courses. I started talking to you, and literally from there, that very next time, which would have been in March, when I would have my annual review with the client, and I can remember sitting there and saying, "So my new fee will be," and then he would talk about it. He goes, "Okay, and then your wage, no, my fee." He goes, "Yeah, whatever." I'm like, "Well, no, there is a difference." We were still on an hourly basis, but changing that mindset from here's my hourly wage to this is my fee hourly helped to break that cycle of I'm not an employee, I'm a client, I'm a subcontractor, I'm in control,
Yep.
if that makes sense. So, and I still have him as a client today. He's downsized to one business he sold, so we now have less to do. But my rate that I work with him, the fees for his new business are vastly different than what it was for the one company I worked with him for 23 years.
Okay. And when you say vastly
And
different, I assume that's vastly different as in bigger, or is it smaller?
okay, okay, hours wise, smaller, rate
Yep.
wise, much larger. Like when
Yes.
I was finishing with the one company when he was selling, my fee was 55 an hour. And when we turned over the other three companies that he had to QBO and a flat monthly rate, just for the setup and the cleanup, he said, "Well, how much will that be?" I says, "Well, we can start it out at this and then we'll go to a monthly rate, but my fee is $75 an hour."
Okay.
And you know
That's
what? He didn't even bat an eye. He went, "Okay." In my mind, I'm thinking, man, you've taken advantage of me for so many years. Because it was nothing to him.
so
Like
as
he
you.
was still okay with that $75 an hour when he had been getting 55.
Yeah, and
So
that's it.
yeah,
Okay. So when you started changing the way you priced, initially it was a mindset issue in
yes.
2016. What were the first then practical steps that you started to take? What did you start doing different in the way you priced?
The biggest difference for me was I redid all of my brochures, all my information, and then of course with your, well, it wasn't called effective pricing then, it was the
Cloud
cloud
pricing. Yeah.
pricing 2.0. Um, from that, I was able to develop that monthly fee based on, it's still kind of based on transactions, but it's more the results that I'm delivering as opposed to here's the work I'm doing. And so for this many hours, this is what you're going to pay.
Okay. Yeah. And
Yes.
so when you're talking to a client about price, do you use that software based approach? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And so when you started doing that, when you started involving the client in the pricing process, when you first opened up your laptop, that must have felt a very strange way of pricing. Did you find that difficult? Was it challenging?
It was. The biggest challenge that I have had over the last few years is for businesses who've always been the hourly rate. And then when they're coming in and they're getting a monthly fee, and I did, I had a client who said, "Oh, can I think about it?" I talked to my wife. Yes. And he came back, he goes, "I'm just not understanding." I said, "Okay, do you want to go over the questions again?" He says, "No, I get that part." And I went, "You're trying to figure out what it is hourly, aren't you?" He went, "Yes." Yes, I am. I says, we don't do hourly. We do a flat monthly fee based on the results we're going to provide to you. And I just stopped talking. And it made it easier to realize that for me, this is the way it is. It doesn't matter if the client prospect, because he's not a customer or not a client yet, if he can't wrap his head around that and accept that and still wants an hourly, then he'll need to go find someone else.
Yeah, because it's your business, you make the rules up. Absolutely, yeah.
Yes.
And so how generally speaking have your clients reacted to this shift from the old hourly to now giving them certainty and a price up front?
I did lose a couple clients, but they were clients that it was okay for them to go. um, but aside from that, like this one client that I started with, and the monthly fee. Now we just renewed him in April. Yes, in April. And the rate went up drastically. And that's because the volume of his work, of course, with the pandemic, everybody went home and decided to renovate their houses, and they're a closet type company. So they went in from, January they started, kind of went down a little bit, and then whoop, they went way up. So the volume, of course, I said, no, your volume has changed drastically. And we did have a couple of discussions because he didn't quite understand how, because I don't really see how that would make a difference. So I literally had to take it down to transaction base, just for perspective. So when we first priced, your transactions were, just say it was 70 transactions a month. Now you're at almost 300. Oh. so changing that then took the price from, well, at that time it was $868 a month to $1,300 a month. And it was just the switch. Here we are now. This is what it is for the next year. And he still has one aspect of his business that he is not getting to me correctly. So I do an out of scope one-off fee for those invoices that he doesn't pull from his CRM correctly. So the dates are wrong and we have to fix them. So I still charge him now for every invoice. I charge him $2 per invoice to fix it.
Okay. So one of the things that when you use effective pricing, you make it clear about what the scope of the work is, how many transactions and so on. So when you're working with a client, when things do change, when the scope changes, when they grow and the number of transactions goes up, does that make the conversation subsequently easier then?
Oh, absolutely. Because it's very clear, right? It's not where I can just say, yeah, it's taking me longer to do. And they're like, well, you could say, well, then maybe you're working slower. Well, no, I can matter-of-factly show the number of transactions has changed from, say 100 a month to 300 a month. You've grown, and so, which is great, but it does take longer to get that stuff done. And so we run it through the software again, and so this is going to be an adjustment, and this is going to be your new rate.
Right, yeah, so it creates clarity, it creates transparency in the way that you price. So do you now price all of your clients in that way?
Every single one.
Yeah.
And I don't start till after I've done a discovery diagnostic.
Okay.
And I charge for that too.
Okay, well tell me more about how you do that.
So originally I used to do it for free. It was kind of like, back in the day, it was kind of like a little interview. Let me tell you all about how I can help you. And yeah, I found over the years how many times I sat and talked to people for, half hour, 2 hours, and then they would find out all their problems, and then they would go away and I'd never hear from them again. So it wasn't until I got into this world of yourself and others that they go, well, why aren't you charging for that? And I went, I don't know, because I never have. So I did start out at 150, and I can hear the ringing in my ears. Mark says that's way too cheap. So,
Yep.
but what I realized from that was if I was only charging 150, I got those type of clients that could afford the 150. So those became not necessarily the clients I wanted. So now I charge 500 is my base price.
Wow.
If you can't afford 500 for me to look at your books, to see the problems, to tell you how I can help you, then we don't even start. And I've just done two clients, well, two prospects that are clients now, um, and one of them, very, very messy. And the other one, I actually, because of the volume of the revenues, so I knew that the pricing was going to be more to begin with. I actually charged him $7.50 per file because he has two companies.
Very impressive. So you used to do the diagnostic like most people for free. You then implemented a system and went for $150, and then suddenly you jumped to 500, which is really impressive. And so now that you charge $500, do you lose a lot of business? And what's the type of quality of the sort of clients that you do then sign up off the back of that process?
Um, the the ones that I lose are the ones, quite frankly, they're not even interested in starting. Now, I do have to say, and that was one of the reasons why at my price, I did a diagnostic for a lady at 150. She was a little bit hesitant, but she did it. And I'm sorry, I have to say, by the time I finished and we went through the pricing, we actually didn't even get to the pricing software. She said, okay, well, we can go through your pricing software, but I just want you to know my accountant only charges me $75. And I went, an hour? She goes, no, per month. I said, okay, well, I don't charge an hourly rate, but if I was, that would be my starting hourly rate. And I really tried not to laugh because it was like, who is this accountant that's doing your books for $75 a month? Like if nothing else, she can't be charging more than 25 bucks an hour because all of what we went through has to take a minimum of 2 to 3 hours a month. So that was the end of the conversation. I said, well, you know what, we won't even go through the pricing software because if that's the amount that you're expecting to pay, I'm not going to be able to help you. And I'm not trying to do a disservice to anybody, but you're going to find it really hard to find somebody that will do it in that range. And that came from the CGA that had been doing her books for 13 years and never raised her prices.
Extraordinary what some people are charging, but congratulations to you for that conversation and being upfront. I can't do it for that price. We have to
Well,
we have to we have to stand our ground with pricing. Absolutely.
Yeah, and the newest client that I just did the cleanup on to get his year end done for the accountant, the last bookkeeper that I major cleanup, saw her invoice. Yeah, she was CGA charging $35 an hour for bookkeeping.
Extraordinary.
So, and I understand why he was a little shocked at my price.
Yeah.
But now that he sees the results of me getting everything cleaned up that she had messed up and getting everything to the accountant for year end so the accountant could get year end done on time, literally the day of the final deadline date, but we did get it done. He is quite happy because now he knows, and I mean, including fixing where she had pushed from the bank feed a bunch of stuff to uncategorized income for deposits and charged the GST, PST, which they weren't even that, to the tune of $60,000.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, and all those payments were transfers from the line of credit. So like, and it's just where people are following um, the bank feed and not going by source documentation to know exactly what something is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the problem with if you price too low, if you're too cheap, something's got to give, and usually people cut corners, and that's not a good thing. So, if you think about if I take you back to where you were in 2015, 2016, compared to today, how's life different? How's your practice different? What's the types of client work you do? The clients, what's changed?
Well, the big difference is because I charge vastly different rates, I am getting vastly different clients. So the quality of clients are way better. I'm not sure how to explain that. I've been able to decide who I want to and who I don't want to, just in the discovery diagnostic. Once I get through that, I know whether I even want to take them on at all. I have had actually some prospects where I've not even done the discovery diagnostic because when I do the, hi, how are you? We do a little couple questionnaires just to make it easier for you and for me. But in those questions, even though they're not direct questions, the answers that I extract out of it can tell me whether I even want to take them on as a client. And there are a few clients where I haven't even taken on just to say, oh, I see that we're not a fit, or,
So that's great. So you have two pre-qualification processes. One is the questionnaire, and you make a
Yes.
decision whether they're the right client or not. And if they seem like they might be, the next stage is, are they willing to pay for the diagnostic review?
Yeah.
Great
Yes,
process.
because I can't know how to price if I don't know what the books look like.
Yep. Yep. Makes so much sense. So
Yes.
if you think about your pricing journey from where you were to where you are now, if you could, and just two last questions because I'm conscious of your time. So my penultimate question is how would you describe the big impact, the big result on you or your firm, either in terms of firm growth, profitability, or just simply from an emotional point of view? How do you feel about your firm, about pricing now?
Well, as far as firm growth, I've volume, not so much volume wise as in the number of clients, although that has increased a lot, but in terms of volume on the revenue side has more than doubled.
Wow.
And I know I keep shaking my head. It's like, what? But the bigger side of it is that I'm not constantly worrying about that hourly time. It's just working to get the job done, however long it takes. Now I do keep some track of time because yes, even though it's a monthly fee, we still kind of know how many hours that should take. So if I kind of see that those hours are creeping up beyond what it should be, then I have to look at why.
Hmm.
Is it because there's, extra stuff that we're not getting on time that we have to keep asking for? Or is it because the volume has changed as far as, you know, 20 receipts a month to 40 receipts a month. So now it's taking that much longer. And it's easy to not notice it when you're just plugging away, doing your job, not thinking about it. So there is still an essence of time that I kind of keep an eye on, just as a number in the background. I'm not tracking every single hour to make sure, because it's gonna fluctuate, right, up and down. Different months are going to be a little
Sure.
high, a little low,
Yeah.
but overall, just kind of keeping an eye on it so that if the volume is increasing beyond what is the scope that we've priced, then I need to revisit that. Now, it is technically annual, but if somebody's growth spurt went, way crazy in less time, then I would bring it to their attention and we would have to reprice.
Okay, so makes sense. So from what you just said, if I've got that right, you have an annual conversation with your clients about price, but you use that as an early warning sign, a red flag that, oh, something's changing here, we need to have an earlier conversation.
Yes.
Yes, very impressive. So my final question, Carol, is if you could share 3 top tips with people based on what you've discovered yourself and learned over the last few years with pricing, what would those top 3 tips be?
Don't price hourly. Definitely do something to learn the tools of how to price, whether it's taking your course or I would tell anybody to take anyone else but your course.
Thank you.
But if they were in a position that they weren't able to, or it's all full, can't get in, they could look at others, but they really need to look at some sort of way of determining. It's easy to go hourly. But if you're doing it hourly, you're not billing till after the fact. If you're not taking a retainer, which if I am doing any big jobs, I do take a retainer, you don't know when you're going to get paid. And once the job is done, they can say, well, bye-bye, I don't like you and I'm not paying you. So it's really that big thing. And really the third thing is to do the homework. Make sure they are a client they actually want to work for. Because every single time, and I will admit I have done it, where it just seems so easy, got along with them so well, I sidestepped my discovery diagnostic to help out people, including friends. More than 50% of the time it has not turned out right, or the pricing has been way off.
Carol, there are 3 really powerful tips, and it's been so good to catch up with you and hear your story, the successes you're having, and so pleased that you're getting great results with the effective pricing software. It's been awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and thank you. Your pricing software is number 1. I wouldn't express it to anyone else to not use anyone else.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Bye for now.
Bye.